Deleting social media is one of the quietest decisions a person can make, and one of the most psychologically revealing. There is no announcement required, no explanation owed, no ceremony. Just a disappearance from a space that most people treat as essential to modern existence. And yet, when someone deletes their social media, reactions are immediate. Confusion, curiosity, judgment, admiration, suspicion. People ask why, because leaving social media feels, to many, like stepping outside the social contract itself. But the psychology of people who delete their social media has very little to do with rebellion or trendiness. It has almost nothing to do with not liking technology, and it rarely comes from impulsivity. In most cases, it is the end result of a long internal process, one that unfolds quietly, privately, and deliberately. People who delete their social media usually don't wake up one morning and decide to vanish. They arrive there slowly, through accumulation, through fatigue, through subtle dissonance that builds over time until something inside them says, "Enough." One of the first psychological patterns behind deleting social media is overstimulation. Social platforms are not neutral spaces. They are environments engineered to demand attention, provoke emotion, and reward comparison. For some nervous systems, this constant stimulation becomes unbearable. Not dramatic, not explosive, just heavy. People who delete social media often notice that their mind never fully rests. Even when the phone is down, the residue remains. Images replay, opinions echo, comparisons linger. The inner world feels crowded by voices that are not their own. Deleting social media is not about escaping people. It's about reclaiming mental space. Another key factor is identity pressure. Social media subtly asks you to perform a version of yourself, to curate, to explain, to update, to signal relevance. Even passive consumption reinforces this pressure. You are constantly reminded of who you are supposed to be, what you are supposed to value, how your life is supposed to look. For some people, this creates identity distortion. They begin to feel disconnected from their own internal compass. Their sense of self becomes reactive instead of grounded. They notice that their moods, desires, and self-worth fluctuate based on what they consume. Deleting social media becomes an act of self-preservation. Another psychological truth is that people who delete their social media often experience emotional fatigue. Not just from comparison, but from exposure. Exposure to outrage, to suffering, to performance, to noise. Social media collapses emotional distance. You absorb far more than the human nervous system evolved to handle. For empathetic or sensitive individuals, this exposure accumulates quietly. They feel tired without knowing why, restless without cause, numb or irritable without explanation. Eventually, they trace the thread back to constant digital immersion. Leaving is not dramatic. It's merciful. There is also a strong connection between deleting social media and autonomy. Social platforms subtly shape behavior. What you post, when you post, how you speak, even how you think. Algorithms reward certain expressions and punish others. Over time, people notice themselves adjusting unconsciously. They edit thoughts before they're even spoken. They anticipate reactions. They perform relevance. For some, this loss of autonomy becomes intolerable. Deleting social media is a way of saying, "I want my thoughts to belong to me again." Another layer is emotional honesty. Many people who leave social media are tired of pretending. Tired of presenting highlights while hiding complexity. Tired of smiling publicly while processing privately. The gap between real life and online life becomes too wide. Silence starts to feel more honest than posting. Another important psychological driver is comparison fatigue. Social media thrives on constant comparison. Achievement, appearance, lifestyle, relationships. Even when people intellectually understand that what they're seeing is curated, their nervous system still reacts. People who delete social media often notice that comparison doesn't motivate them. It drains them. It creates dissatisfaction without direction, desire without clarity. Removing the stimulus restores emotional equilibrium. Another misunderstood aspect is that many people who delete social media still value connection deeply. They are not antisocial. They simply prefer depth over broadcast. They want conversations, not audiences. Presence, not performance. They don't disappear from life. They reappear in it. There is also a psychological shift that often precedes deletion. Awareness. People begin to notice how often they reach for their phone automatically, how quickly boredom triggers scrolling, how rarely they feel truly satisfied afterward. This awareness creates friction. Once you see the pattern, it's hard to unsee it. Another layer is meaning. Many people who delete social media are searching for meaning that is not mediated. They want experiences that are lived, not documented. Moments that exist without proof. Achievements that matter even if no one applauds them. Deleting social media is often a reclaiming of intrinsic motivation. Another important factor is emotional boundaries. Social media erodes them. People comment on your life, interpret your silence, expect access. For some, this constant permeability feels invasive. Deleting social media restores boundaries that were slowly dissolving. Silence becomes sovereignty. There is also a developmental aspect. Some people reach a stage in life where external validation loses its grip. They no longer need likes to confirm worth. They no longer need visibility to feel real. This shift often coincides with deeper self-trust. When validation moves inward, platforms lose their power. Another psychological truth is that deleting social media often follows disillusionment. People realize that the platform does not give what it promises. Connection feels shallow. Visibility feels hollow. Expression feels constrained. The return on emotional investment feels low, so they leave. Not in anger, in clarity. If you're listening to this and recognizing yourself, it's important to know that deleting social media is not avoidance. It's a conscious reallocation of attention. And staying connected to reflections like this matters, because without understanding, people who leave social media are often misread as arrogant, secretive, or detached. Subscribing isn't about rejecting the world. It's about engaging with it on terms that protect your mind. This is only part of the psychology. There are deeper layers still. How deleting social media affects relationships, identity, loneliness, creativity, and the sense of time itself. Another layer in the psychology of people who delete their social media is how they relate to attention. Social media trains attention to fragment. Short bursts, constant switching, endless novelty. For a while, this feels stimulating, but over time, some people begin to feel mentally scattered. They struggle to focus deeply. Their thoughts feel interrupted even when they're alone. People who eventually delete social media often notice this erosion of attention first. They realize they can no longer read, think, or create the way they used to. Their mind jumps, their patience thins, their inner silence disappears. And because attention is the gateway to meaning, life starts to feel flatter. Deleting social media becomes an attempt to restore depth. There's also a profound relationship between social media deletion and emotional integrity. Online spaces reward simplified identities. You are encouraged to present opinions quickly, confidently, and publicly. Nuance rarely survives. Uncertainty is punished. Complexity is ignored. For people who think in layers, this creates internal tension. They feel pressured to express views that don't fully represent them, to react before understanding, to align with tribes they don't fully belong to. Silence becomes the only honest option. Another important psychological shift is the relationship with time. Social media collapses time into an endless present. Old posts resurface. Trends cycle rapidly. Urgency dominates. People who delete social media often report that time begins to feel slower afterward. Days feel longer. Moments feel fuller. Memory reorganizes. Without constant updates, life regains sequence. This temporal shift is deeply regulating for the nervous system. Humans evolved to live in rhythms, not feeds. Removing social media restores natural pacing, work, rest, boredom, curiosity. Another driver is privacy. Many people who delete social media become increasingly uncomfortable with being observed. Not in a paranoid sense, but in an existential one. They don't like the idea that their thoughts, photos, or moments are permanently archived, searchable, and interpretable by strangers. They begin to value unrecorded existence. Privacy becomes a form of dignity. There is also a strong link between deleting social media and emotional maturity. Over time, some people outgrow environments that revolve around validation, reaction, and spectacle. They no longer want their inner life mirrored back at them through metrics. Likes begin to feel hollow. Visibility begins to feel invasive. Deleting social media is often a sign that self-worth has shifted inward. Another misunderstood aspect is loneliness. Many people assume that deleting social media increases loneliness. In reality, for many, it reveals loneliness that was already there. Social media can mask isolation with the illusion of connection. When it's gone, the emptiness becomes visible. But visibility is the first step to change. People who delete social media often replace it with fewer, deeper connections. They call instead of scroll, meet instead of like, or they spend more time alone, but alone in a way that feels chosen, not imposed. There is also a creative component. Social media consumes creative energy. It encourages output without depth, reaction without reflection. People who delete social media often notice a return of creativity, not necessarily artistic, but existential. They think more freely, they imagine more deeply, they explore ideas without broadcasting them. Creation becomes private again. Another psychological truth is that deleting social media often exposes discomfort before relief. There is a withdrawal period, boredom, restlessness, the urge to check. This doesn't mean the decision was wrong. It means the habit was strong. What comes after that discomfort is often clarity. Another important factor is emotional comparison exhaustion. Even when people know intellectually that social media is curated, emotionally they still compare. Deleting social media removes a constant trigger. The nervous system relaxes. People begin to want what they want again, not what they're told to want. Another layer is authenticity. Without an audience, people rediscover who they are when no one is watching. Their tastes shift, their opinions soften. Their desires become quieter but more precise. Life becomes less performative. Another psychological shift happens in how people experience achievement. Accomplishments no longer feel incomplete without sharing. Satisfaction becomes internal. Pride becomes quieter but more stable. Deleting social media trains delayed gratification in an age of instant reaction. Another often overlooked reason people delete social media is grief. Grief for time lost, for attention spent, for moments diluted by documentation. Leaving social media can feel like reclaiming something precious. Time becomes tangible again. There is also a relational clarity that emerges. Without social media, relationships reveal themselves. Who reaches out, who doesn't, who was connected to you and who was connected to your content. This can be painful, but it's honest. People who delete social media often go through a reorganization of their social world. Some connections fade, others deepen. The noise falls away. Another psychological truth is that deleting social media is rarely permanent rebellion. Many people leave not because they hate social media, but because they want to relate to it differently. Some return later with boundaries, others don't. The key shift is agency. They choose when and how to engage. Understanding the psychology of people who delete their social media reveals something fundamental about human attention and identity. It shows that not everyone thrives in environments of constant visibility, that some minds need quiet to stay intact, that some people choose depth over reach. Deleting social media is not disappearance. It is repositioning. It is choosing presence over performance, privacy over projection, depth over noise. And for many, it is one of the most psychologically stabilizing decisions they ever make. You don't delete social media because you don't care about people. You delete it because you care about your mind.